morning. Today we're going to deal with the subject of denominational diversity. More specifically, we're going to deal with the denominational diversity that existed between a group whose members referred to as Mennonites and other Christian denominations that came to this part of the world. The Mennonites started in Europe and came to this part of the world because they were seeking freedom to worship God without being obstructed or inhibited from doing so by the government or other religious groups. After coming to this United States, when it was still colonial America, they found that predominantly in the South and in the North to some extent, people were by and large supportive of slavery. However, they, unlike many other Christian groups, were adamantly opposed to slavery. As a matter of fact, they may have been the earliest Christian group that actually opposed slavery. They took such a hard stand on it that they influenced the Quakers, who became known as advocates for abolitionism. They, the Mennonites, also were opposed to war and bearing arms. So during the wars that the United States have had, they, for the most part, were not part of the war. And during the Civil War of the United States, when the North and the South were at odds with each other over the issue of slavery or over the issue of the economy that related to the slave trade and what was deemed to be unfair with respect to the economic advantage that the southern states had, the Mennonites, some of them decided that they were going to join the military and fight with the Union. However, even in doing so, they did not decide to take up arms. Being true to their religious persuasion, they decided to join, but to serve as cooks, teamsters, and in other capacities. In the 20th century, when the draft was initiated by the United States government to get men to go fight in Vietnam and elsewhere, the young Mennonites of the 20th century continued in the tradition of their ancestors by refusing to serve in the military. Beyond that, what made the Mennonites different from others was not just their stance against slavery and against joining the military, but the fact that they, unlike some of the other so-called Protestant denominations or Protestant denominations in colonial America, were opposed to infant baptism. Instead, following the Anabaptists, which they actually came out of or were originally affiliated with, they believed in adult baptism by immersion and voluntarily so, not by coercion. Other than that, the Mennonites are similar in that they wanted to be free. And they decided early on to pick up the English language rather than retain, for what many of them had, was the German language as their first language. This was evidenced in the records found uh, by researchers dealing with one of their bishops who early on in the 1650s, excuse me, actually started keeping records in English. This was done earlier than some other immigrant groups that came to this part of the world, which showed, of course, that they were willing to advance in order to be successful. Beyond that, there's much to be learned from this particular group. However, time would not allow us to do such. But if you're interested or would like to know more about them, I would suggest that you continue to pursue this subject of this particularly rich and interesting and unique group referred to as Mennonites, whose members have done much to influence the development of this United States of America. Thank you for allowing me to share.